The alien fleet has arrived at Earth's orbit, but there's a chilling revelation. What humanity thought was an invasion force is actually something far more terrifying. As the first line of defense is mobilized, a desperate order is issued by the Council, and Earth's fate hangs in the balance. In the face of an overwhelming threat, humanity faces its greatest challenge yet. Pull back. That's not a ship. That's a weapon. The voice of Admiral Vance crackled through the command center's speakers, tinged with panic. His hands gripped the console, his knuckles white, as he watched the monstrous silhouette on the screen. It was too large to be a ship no human built. Craft could match the size and power that loomed above Earth. The figure was impossibly vast, shadowed against the backdrop of the starry expanse, and it wasn't moving. It was waiting. "Admiral, what are you seeing?" a voice demanded from the other end of the comms. It was General Harris, whose own eyes were glued to the monitor in front of him. "General, we made a grave mistake," Vance replied, his voice strained. "It's not just a ship. It's a weapon, something much worse. It's like it's designed to destroy everything in its path." Across the room, a sharp gasp rang out as the staff and crew watched the alien vessel or weapon pulse with a dark energy, its surface shifting, morphing like some kind of living organism, far beyond anything humanity could comprehend. "We're wasting time," Harris said, his tone firm. "We need to launch a counterstrike. This, whatever it is, cannot be allowed to stay." Vance shook his head, his eyes darting to the screen again. "We don't have the firepower to counter that. It would obliterate us before we even make a move." The entire room fell silent at the implication. The plan had been simple. Earth's defenses would rise to meet the alien threat. Ships would launch, weapons would fire, and humanity would show the universe that it wouldn't be easily conquered. But now, everything had changed. On the screen, the alien weapon remained eerily still, but the atmosphere around it shifted. The very air felt thick, almost alive. It was as if it had become a black hole, drawing in everything: attention, hope, and any remnants of human bravado. "Sir," Lieutenant Harlow said, her voice small but urgent, "we're getting a new transmission. It's from the alien ship." Vance's heart sank, but he nodded for her to continue. A low, grinding sound filled the comms. Then, a voice, alien, guttural, and clear-cut through the static. "Humanity's arrogance has led you to your extinction. You could have avoided this. You could have been a part of something greater." The words echoed in the control room, sending a cold chill down every spine. "We can't let them finish whatever they're doing," General Harris growled, trying to mask the fear in his voice with authority. "Prepare the fleet for launch, now." But as the first wave of human ships prepared to leave Earth's orbit, a strange, unnerving quiet settled over the command center. No one moved. Everyone waited for the inevitable, but the inevitable had already arrived. The alien ship began to glow with a radiant intensity, its core pulsating as if breathing. And then, with terrifying speed, the weapon opened. It split apart, revealing an array of energy conduits that seemed to be alive. Humans could not even begin to understand the technology at work. What followed next was a series of lights-a spiral of dark energy that cascaded down toward Earth. "We're too late," Vance muttered, watching as the beams began to converge. "They've already begun the attack." "Order the fleet to pull back now," Harris shouted, but it was too late. The first wave of human ships had already been launched, and before they could even reach the weapon, the beam cut through the sky like a scythe. The ships were incinerated, disintegrated in a flash of white light. Admiral Vance's voice shook as he issued the final order. "All units, pull back. Retreat. We cannot win this fight." There was no time for strategy, no. Time for regrouping. Every minute that passed saw more destruction, more ships vaporized, more forces lost. General Harris turned away from the screen, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily on his chest. "What are we dealing with here?" he whispered. The silence in the room was deafening. The alien weapon was not just a weapon of war, it was a force of nature, beyond any human comprehension, and humanity had no means of fighting it. Earth's defense systems, its best technologies, and its bravest soldiers had been reduced to nothing. The tide of the battle had already turned, and the rest of the planet would soon follow. "Call every remaining ship back to Earth," Harris ordered, his voice breaking. "We need to regroup. We need to find a way to fight back. Whatever this is, we can't let it win." But as the weapon loomed over them, humanity understood something vital in that moment. Victory was no longer guaranteed. They had underestimated their enemy in every possible way, and now it was too late for regrets, and that was before Earth even responded. The real war was about to begin. The air in the command center was thick with tension, every officer's gaze locked onto the alien weapon that now hovered in Earth's atmosphere. The initial strike had come faster than anyone had expected, and the aftermath was devastating. Humanity's once proud fleet had been torn apart in mere seconds. The remaining forces had pulled back, retreating to regroup, but they all knew deep down that retreat was a luxury they could no longer afford. General Harris stood in front of the massive holographic screen, staring at the planet below. The Earth, once so vibrant, now seemed insignificant under the weight of the alien presence. The weapon, if it could even be called that, was still there, an ominous black shape in the sky, seemingly unperturbed by humanity's feeble attempts to stop it. "Get me the president," Harris growled, his voice tight, his mind racing. This was bigger than just the military now. This was a global catastrophe, and they needed a unified response. But would it even matter? A technician, pale and trembling, keyed in the command, and after a few agonizing seconds, the screen flickered to life. The president's face appeared, her expression grim but determined. "General Harris, what's the situation?" "We've lost contact with most of the fleet," Harris said, his tone barely above a whisper. "The alien weapon is far more advanced than anything we've seen. Our ships didn't even have time to engage before they were wiped out. We don't know how to counter it." The president's lips tightened. "What's the status of civilian areas? Are we evacuating?" "Where?" "Working on it, but the alien ship is positioned above major population centers. We're seeing widespread panic. I've ordered the immediate deployment of shelters and the activation of emergency protocols. But without the military support, it's going to be chaos down there." "We can't afford chaos, General. The people are depending on us." "What are we doing to fight back?" Her voice wavered for a moment, the weight of the situation clearly pressing down on her. Harris's mind raced. The alien force was practically toying with them, demonstrating its overwhelming power with a precision that felt calculated. They hadn't even fired a single shot it didn't need to. The display of raw power had been enough to shatter the morale of the world's greatest military forces. "The truth is, ma'am, I don't know if we can fight back. This weapon, this thing, it's beyond anything we've ever encountered. The fleets are gone. We have nothing left." For a moment, there was silence on the other end of the line. Then the president spoke, her voice steady but laced with the gravity of the situation. "General, I'm going to give you an order. You find a way. I don't care what it takes. Humanity can't just roll over." Harris swallowed, looking at the faces of his officers, all waiting for him to make the next move. He didn't feel like a leader right now. He felt like a man standing on the edge of a precipice, waiting for the inevitable. "We'll try, ma'am. But we need more time. We need to know what we're dealing with first. We don't have time, General. You have 48 hours to come up with a plan. The weapon is in Earth's orbit. If it stays there much longer, it will be too late. The President's image flickered and the transmission ended. Harris was left standing in front of the holographic screen, the weight of the world bearing down on his shoulders. The alien weapon was still out there, waiting, observing. It had shown no signs of attacking further, but the message was clear. It was in control. The room was dead silent as the officers exchanged uneasy glances. Harris turned to them, his voice quieter now. "What's our next step?" Lieutenant Harlow, who had been observing the alien ship through the surveillance systems, spoke up. "Sir, I've been analyzing the weapon's energy signature. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. It's almost as if it's feeding off the planet's energy. Every time we try to send a signal, it redirects us. It's like it's drawing power from Earth itself. Can we disrupt it?" Harris asked, his eyes narrowing. "We've tried, but everything we send up there gets blocked." "It's as if they're anticipating our every move," Harlow replied, her voice tinged with frustration. "It's not just a weapon, it's a conduit. It's siphoning Earth's energy in a way we don't understand. If it keeps doing this, we might lose all power." Harris's heart sank. This wasn't just an invasion, it was an extermination. The alien ship wasn't simply trying to conquer Earth, it was draining the planet of its life force. If they couldn't stop it soon, humanity might be left powerless and vulnerable, unable to defend itself or rebuild. He clenched his fists. "We need to figure out a way to disrupt its power. If it's feeding off Earth, we need to find a way to cut off that supply. We need to hit them where it hurts." There was a moment of silence as his officers considered the possibilities. Then a voice broke through the tension. "We have one option." "Sir," Lieutenant Commander Smith said, his voice shaky but resolute. "It's a long shot, but we could use the planetary defense grid. It's not designed to be offensive, but if we overload the system, it might just create enough of a feedback loop to disrupt their connection to Earth." "Do it," Harris ordered immediately. "We don't have time to waste. Harlow, get to the defense grid. Smith, coordinate the backup systems. We'll have to launch everything at once." The team moved quickly, each member scrambling to put the plan into motion. Harris stayed behind, staring at the alien ship on the screen. His mind kept replaying the President's words. Humanity can't just roll over. But how could they stand up to something like this? A weapon that was so far beyond them, so vast, so powerful? It felt impossible. Yet, in that moment, he understood. What was at stake? The world had no choice but to fight back, no matter the odds. Minutes passed like hours. Harlow's voice crackled over the comms. "Sir, we've initiated the grid overload. It's going to take a minute to kick in." "Then we wait," Harris said, steeling himself for whatever came next, "and pray it's enough." But as the countdown began, something in the air shifted. The alien ship moved. Not with the slow, deliberate grace it had shown before, but with a sudden startling speed. Harris's heart skipped a beat. It was as if they had known. The alien weapon had reacted. But to what? Harris couldn't be sure, and as the minutes stretched on, the inevitable truth settled in. Whatever came next, it was going to be the beginning of a new war, one humanity was barely prepared for. But they had to fight, or they would die trying. The countdown on the central display flickered, the digital numbers ticking down relentlessly toward zero. The team worked in a frenetic blur around General Harris as the final phase of the grid overload plan was being activated. Each second felt like an eternity. Every officer in the command center was glued to their station, their eyes wide with equal parts fear and hope. The world had never faced anything like this. Yet, here they were, preparing for their last stand. Lieutenant Harlow's fingers danced across her console, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Sir, the overload is at 90%. We're almost there." Harris watched the monitor, his throat dry. The alien weapon still hung in Earth's orbit, its ominous presence unchanged. It had been silent since its first display of power, and that silence felt like the calm before an inevitable storm. Harris could almost feel the weight of its gaze, the pressure of something so vast, so incomprehensible, watching humanity's every move. "The alien ship is adjusting," Harlow said, her voice tight. "It's starting to rotate, moving toward the grid's location." "Can we stop it?" Harris asked, the desperation creeping into his voice. "Can we make it malfunction?" "I don't know," Harlow answered honestly. It's anticipating our every move. We've never seen tech like this, sir. It's almost as if they're not just reacting to us, they're controlling the battlefield." Harris clenched his fists, the weight of the situation settling deep in his bones. He felt the pressure of the entire planet pressing down on him. This wasn't just a military conflict anymore. This was humanity's survival, and every move they made seemed to be a step further into the unknown. They had no guarantees, no assurance of success. All they had was their resolve. "How much time until the overload reaches critical mass?" he asked. 2 minutes, Harlow replied, her voice steady but tinged with anxiety. "If it works, we might disrupt the alien ship's power source. It'll be the best chance we've got." "And if it doesn't work?" Harris muttered, though he already knew the answer. "If it doesn't work, we lose everything," Harlow said, not bothering to sugarcoat the situation. "The overload will push the grid past its limit and we'll be without power. Earth will be a sitting duck." Harris didn't respond. His thoughts were interrupted by a sharp beep from one of the radar stations. A low murmur rippled through the command center as the radar technician scanned the screen again. "General, we have incoming," the technician said, his voice trembling. "It's moving fast." Harris's heart skipped a beat. The alien weapon, or rather, its true nature, had been cloaked under the veil of a seemingly passive presence. But now it was active. The massive, ominous shape in the sky began to shift, expanding and contracting as if the ship itself were alive. The air seemed to ripple with a strange energy as the alien vessel moved closer toward Earth's atmosphere. "How far?" Harris barked, stepping toward the radar technician. "Coming in fast speed is exponential. It's entering the atmosphere," the technician reported. Before anyone could react, the entire command center was plunged into darkness. The grid's lights blinked out, replaced by the soft hum of the backup systems, but there was no comfort in the backup lights. Instead, there was only an eerie silence, a silence that pressed against their eardrums like a thick fog. "Status," Harris demanded, his voice rising in urgency. "Double quote, sir. We've lost the connection," Lieutenant Harlow said. "The overload. It didn't work. The alien ship is absorbing the grid's power." The room felt colder. The quiet buzz of the backup systems was a cruel reminder that their best shot had failed. The alien weapon was too advanced. It had anticipated the overload and absorbed the energy as if it were nothing. It had been one step ahead the entire time. "What's our next move?" General Harris asked, his voice barely a whisper. "There is no next move," Harlow said, her eyes wide with shock. "We're out of options." The weight of those words hung heavily in the air, suffocating the hope that had remained just moments ago. The alien ship had dismantled their entire defense in seconds. What else could they possibly do? Suddenly, a new transmission came through. It wasn't a message from the alien ship, but rather from the remnants of the human fleet. Admiral Vance's face appeared on the screen, his face drawn and tired, but his eyes filled with something resembling resolve. General, we've been talking. This isn't just a battle for Earth, Vance said, his voice steady despite the circumstances. We've been fighting a war we didn't even know existed, but we can't let this be the end. If we're going to survive, we need to join forces. The last of the fleet, the European resistance, the South American coalition, we need to unite every remaining force. This fight isn't over. Harris was silent for a moment, his mind struggling to process the words. You want to fight back? With what? The remnants of our fleets are scattered. We have nothing left to launch. We don't need fleets, Vance said, his tone firm. We need to survive. We need to think differently. Our last chance isn't in weapons or grids. It's in our unity. If we can hold them off, even for a little while, we may be able to develop something new. The screen blinked as the transmission ended. Silence fell again. Harris turned back to the screen, watching the alien ship's unblinking, impenetrable form. It was too large to be defeated with brute force. It was too advanced, too calculated. But he couldn't bring himself to abandon humanity's spirit of defiance. They had fought against impossible odds before. Prepare for full evacuation, Harris ordered, his voice a mixture of fear and determination. Activate every last shelter on the planet, and prepare our people. This is a fight for our survival, and we're not going down without one. Even as he spoke, Harris knew the truth. The battle was far from over, but humanity had just crossed into the most terrifying phase of its existence. The alien weapon was a reality now no longer a distant threat, but a looming presence that could wipe them from the map with a single thought. But as long as they were alive, they would fight, because the one thing they had left was the will to resist. The world could tremble, but they would stand. The alien ship loomed above Earth, its monstrous size casting a shadow over the planet. The remnants of Earth's military forces, scattered and broken, were struggling to stay coordinated. But the hope that had sparked with General Harris's orders had already started to fade. With each passing second, the situation became more desperate. Inside the command center, Harris stood at the center of the room, his hands pressed to the table. The weight of the world bore down on him, but the one thought that kept him grounded was the same. Humanity would not go down quietly. Sir, all shelters are activated, Lieutenant Harlow said, her voice grim. Evacuations are underway, but it's chaos. The alien ship hasn't made another move yet, but it's still drawing power. If it keeps draining Earth like this, we're looking at a global blackout in the next few hours. General Harris's gaze stayed fixed on the screen, watching the alien ship in the sky. It hadn't moved since the initial strike, and the unsettling stillness had become just as terrifying as the first attack. It wasn't just the weapon they had to fear. It was the unknown, the anticipation of the next move. Contact the other resistance forces, Harris ordered. Tell them to stand by. I need options. Any options. But as the minutes ticked by, the thought that had haunted him since the moment. The alien ship appeared settled deeper into his chest. They had no weapons capable of stopping this. The alien force had already outmaneuvered every tactic they had. And then, just as all seemed lost, something shifted in the atmosphere. The sky, which had been an unnerving calm, darkened further. The ship began to rotate, its massive silhouette splitting into multiple segments. A low hum emanated from it like a storm building in intensity. The power it was pulling from Earth seemed to increase. General, Harlow whispered, her voice thick with dread. It's starting again. The alien ship began to fire. The first beam shot down from the ship, cutting through the atmosphere with such force that it seemed to distort reality itself. It wasn't a weapon of mere destruction, it was something far worse. It felt final, inevitable. Earth was no longer just facing an invasion. It was the beginning of the end. The last war had begun, and humanity stood, caught between defiance and annihilation.